break that. We need to break the mindset that says, if we wanted to do good, it's separate from making money.
Hi, welcome to the Blockchain for Humanity Fireside Chat. Today, we have Ashish Gadnis. He's the co-founder and CEO of BanQu.
And our vision is simple, right? 100 million people enabled out of poverty and $100 million in revenue.
He has been recognized for groundbreaking, for-profit and for-purpose innovation. We're going to hear much about this today. Going back on those early days of BanQu, what was it like for a new member to come into BanQu or a new customer being served? Or, who were the customers at that point?
Yes, so I think it was hard. Trust me, it was extremely hard. We were starting to talk to brands, and I think the initial customers we were going after were companies and organizations that had last mile or first mile, right? So if they were buying from farmers or they were buying from recyclers or whatever, right? And honestly, it was extremely hard. And here's why. Because, and this is not a slam on, CSR or anything like that. Every time we had the conversation, there were two hesitation points, right? One was, wait a minute, we don't want to do blockchain because we don't understand cryptocurrency. And I'm like, well, we don't use the currency part, but this is early days, right? And then second, the ones that adopted us, like the AB InBevs and the Japan Tobaccos, they recognize the value of distributed data ownership. They recognize the value of data as a data democracy. Those brands, what we talked to when we said, hey, the farmer will own their data and you'll have a transparent supply chain, they hesitated. And they hesitated because, what you don't know is it goes into the ignorance bucket, and then I don't have to deal with it, right? And because of my experience in Congo, I realized mining is a good example, right? I talked to a lot of mining companies, and I said, you're using children to pull the cobalt that then goes into your lithium battery, right? Cars, cell phones, or diamonds, right? And everybody would send us to their foundation, or they would send us to their CSR, right? In fact, I was in one meeting where they said, for the next 1 year, we're going to commission a study on our regions. And I'm like, wait a minute, so you're going to spend the whole year on a study, and you do know there's child labor in your minds, correct? And they're like, yes. And so that's kind of where we like, but then there were brands like AB InBev, right? They said, look, we'll start with 300 farmers. And if you can prove that this farmer is selling this amount of cassava, and we can look at if there's any corruption in the supply chain, we'll scale it, right? So we looked for companies that not only agreed with our philosophy of creating a better world, but also realized that potentially they could save money in their supply chain. Potentially they could tell their consumer, hey, I can tell you where your beer came from.
Exactly. I mean, that's
but
step forward, right? And it also tells you genuinely what the purpose is of that business. So,
right.
But you mentioned something really interesting, which was the CSR program. So they already dismissed this as something like, philanthropic, not for profit. This has to be in that sort of box.
Right. That's because, to be honest, and this is again, I'm speaking very honestly here. We need everybody. We need NGOs. We need CSR. We need everything. But the way we look at a solution, right? We have a business solution to a business problem, right? And the business problem a brand has today, forget the social impact, is if you want your supply chain to be more cost effective, then you need to know who your farmer is. Then you need to know who is the person in the mine, right? You can't wash your hands and say, we purchase from 3-tier supply chains. So if our broker is buying from another broker who's having these children in slavery, you can't unresponsible yourself, right? And so that's kind of where, we realize that this whole notion of getting bucketed as a CSR play is going to hurt us, because then it's status quo, right? I mean, you look on LinkedIn, everybody says, oh, we opened a school today for a mine in Congo. And I'm like, wait a minute. So you opened a school, got amazing footage, right? but have you looked at what's the ecosystem, and what if you run out of funding for the school? Then what happens, right? You've not created a long-term economic resilience for that community.
Our economy and there that can guarantee the resilience that's
Right.
mentioned here.
Exactly.
So this is quite interesting, and I think it's more or less you have already answered these questions, which was the next one. It was about what you and your have learned about what it is to eradicate poverty in terms of what works, what doesn't. Where should we just say, it doesn't work in here, or yes, this works, and why?
To be honest, what we have learned the very, very hard way, right, is we have to change the conversation from reducing poverty and trying to solve these social problems and go to the root cause, which is commerce, in my opinion, right? If you look at the 1.5 or 2 billion people who live in poverty, or the 70 million that are refugees and displaced, somewhere along the line, they are part of a supply chain, right? And supply chains are trade, correct? And for me, the biggest learning lesson today has been, over the last 4.5 years, is I don't walk into a conversation with a CEO or a chief sustainability officer by saying, hey, we're reducing poverty. I say, look, that's just the social impact is table stakes. Do you want to reduce cost in your supply chain in an ethical way? Do you want to know who your last mile is? And especially now post-COVID, you definitely want to know what your supply chain is. Then we can enable that visibility on the sourcing side. And then if you truly believe in making the world a better place from an environment perspective, then you better try to get as many bottles back into the supply chain. You better know who your waste picker is. You better know that in this market, we're just dumping plastic, right? I mean, you look at all the plastic cups for yogurt that are floating around the world. We're destroying the environment. And yet there's a poor family that's picking up that box of yogurt, right? And we need to break that. We need to break the mindset that says, if we wanted to do good, it's separate from making money. Exactly. Right? I mean, the AB InBev CEO who I've gotten to know, Carlos Brito, he says it the best. He says, sustainability is our business, right? It's very basic. Or, if you go to their Uganda factory, it's a very simple 2 lines. It says, no barley, no beer, right? And the no barley for me says everything, because if you don't have farmers that are growing good crop, you don't have a company.
That's true. That is true.
So that's why I kind of I underplay now, because I think people, especially now post-COVID, right? People are like, oh my God, our business is hurting, so we're not really going to worry about doing good. Absolutely the wrong approach.
Completely the wrong approach. I can't agree more. You are preaching.
This is the time. Right. And I'll give you a quick example, right? It's one of our really interesting clients is the Islamic Development Bank. And this is public information. And we talked to them on April 2nd this year. And, they were just rolling out this COVID plan for 25 of their member countries. And they called us and they said, can you figure out how to make sure it's completely traceable and transparent? Can you make sure that people who actually need the supplies get it on time and things like that, right? In a fully traceable, transparent method. And, we were blessed to be at the right place at the right time. On April 11th, we went live with 3 countries on the same platform, because at the end of the day, you want to kind of strengthen these countries that have been hit with COVID. And the way to strengthen them is to have a traceable, transparent supply chain. Now we're live in 25 countries with them. And we are onboarding UN agencies into the marketplace, so that when a country says, I want to order 40,000 masks, it's not like they're calling their uncle Fulanito. It's on the system, the purchase requisitions in a smart contract, the fulfillment is made. And when the gloves actually get to the clinic, if the gloves got to the clinic. You need that,